in Arms was a gigantic album for Dire Straits, topping the charts in 22 countries. But it's hardly an apt description of the story behind the Knopfler brothers, who started the band.
We used to walk past a window, Mark and I, where we lived in Gosforth, and it had guitars in the window. And wherever we were hanging out together, we would always visit the guitar shops and always look in the windows. Mark eventually got an imitation Fender in the form of a Hofner Super Solid, which I still have somewhere. I shouldn't put that on record, I don't want it back. Mark learnt to play on that primarily, but without an amp. And whenever he went out to do his thing, I'd pull it out from under his bed and learn to play it myself. But Mark and I didn't really get into seriously playing together until I think I'd finished college. Then I moved over to Essex, where he was a lecturer, and I was starting my first job as a social worker, could you believe? And so there was a social worker and a lecturer. It didn't really sound like the most promising of beginnings. We did most of the writing, really, for the first album in that burst of togetherness.
Red sun going down, way over dirty town.
Dire Straits' debut album was recorded for £12,500. It went on to sell millions.
Very early on, it was pretty clear to me that David would generally be overruled, usually by the word "shut up." So he would say something and Mark would kind of go, "Shut up. Just shut up."
I tried to sign them for Ireland, but we got beaten by Phonogram, but they asked me if I would produce their first album.
It was clear to me that Mark's facility for playing the guitar was unusual and very good, and that's what was going to give us our extra turbocharge.
Mark was very dominant in Dire Straits. However, I'd noticed that his brother also wrote some very good songs. And why not cut 8 songs of Mark's and a couple of songs of Dave's? And I suddenly found a great deal of resistance to this from Mark.
Essentially, Dire Straits was a vehicle for Mark Knopfler's songs. That's what the band was. And there wasn't room for anybody else's stuff.
I thought it was a democracy, but I was probably deluded. No, it wasn't really a democracy. It was Mark's band.
Sultans of Swing was the standout track, totally against the grain of new wave. But in 1979, it went top 10 in the UK and the USA.
Check out Guitar George. He knows all the chords.
I was 5 yards away when they performed that song, and I vividly remember being just absolutely knocked out.
David Knopfler was totally capable, extremely good guitar player, and as good or as bad as any other top-quality rock band musician. Mark Knopfler was one above that, and there are very few that are one above that.
I was a good musician. I wasn't a great musician. I was still quite a newbie. So Mark could get me out of difficulties. I mean, if I was struggling a little bit, only he would notice, you know, because being brothers you do. We could each communicate to each other with such a subtle gesture that not another person would know what it meant, but it would communicate exactly what we wanted to say to each other, and of course that will prove to be invaluable. It also can prove to be the downfall, because if things are tense, then of course you read the body language very well too.
We're the Sultans of Swing.
Sultans of Swing hit really, really quickly, and all of a sudden, everything changes.
I'd like to take the first. They want to take the first, yeah. From December 77 to January of 1980, we didn't stop. I mean, and we really didn't stop.
Tim, look, we've had this discussion innumerable times. There are no extra dates possible. We should be thankful for what we have.
The pressures are unbelievable, and, and you're travelling 200 miles, 300 miles every day as well. And that kind of success is obviously going to put pressure on a relationship. No relationships can stand that kind of scrutiny.
I had a fear instilled in me quite early on that the whole thing might collapse because of their relationship.
I was probably the only person that could disagree with him, and that was probably an enormous inconvenience to Mark. If you're surrounded by people telling you what colour ashtray do you want, you don't really need your kid brother there around kind of reminding you that you're still just Mark.
Super.
Super for Mark, but as the band recorded their third album, David was super frustrated.
David was increasingly uncomfortable with the prominence that his brother was getting. Most of the press attention, most of the media attention, and he was being hailed as a genius and all the rest of it.
I mean, he needed me to get the first album away and to get the first band together and for it to be successful. It wouldn't have happened without me. By the time he was at making movies, I was really just, in a lot of ways, in the way of what he wanted to do. We were in New York recording it, and, you know, things were very rocky. And Mark was being particularly Mark and was taking no prisoners.
Yeah, if you can get used to just coming in on that, oh yeah, at the end of that, after E and your F.
Don't worry about that bit. Can we go back to the start?
Oh yeah,
Just run through from the top, because I haven't got a clue where it starts with a chorus, does it?
Mark just turned around and he said, I don't care what you play. You can play whatever the fuck you want. I really don't care. It makes no difference. And we were heading towards rock bottom at that point.
I'd suggested that Mark go and take a break and have a beer, which apparently you don't do to, you know, major rock stars playing in American recording studios like Power Station.
It wasn't just the musical relationship that was breaking down, it was the personal relationship that was breaking down.
Case of the right place, wrong time.
It was just getting too difficult to work together.
David walked out on the band, never to return. Mark went on to establish Dire Straits as one of the biggest stadium rock acts of all time. David has had more modest success.
Since I left the band, I've made 9 albums I can call mine, all of which I've enjoyed increasingly, because each one's become closer to the heart of where I originally thought we were going with the Straits.
I cannot hold you if you won't hold me too.
If as brothers you form a band, you're taking the calculated risk that the relationship may be permanently damaged, and it's a tragedy if that happens.
Skies are white.
In the case of the Knopflers, it has been.
It's the love I feel. It's love.
I had no vision about what the consequences of what the price might be. I mean, you don't when you're a young kid with a guitar.
I'd take you any place, risking